Okay. Stuart, we are up on YouTube, so hi out there in YouTube land.
Hello, YouTube land.
This will be unedited YouTube post, but we're going to edit the podcast, of course, so a couple seconds of silence before the podcast. Welcome to Podcaster. Today we have Stuart Mackey. Stuart, are you ready to do a podcast?
Let's go.
Or I should say create a podcast, or I like to use are you fired up to do a podcast, but I can't do that.
I'm fired up.
Fired up. We got to be nice. Kate and everyone knows John Lee Dumas has got the fire market cornered. I think, but there's a lot of fire out there. That's for sure.
They are certainly the most well known.
So, tell us in a few sentences about your podcast and your background in podcasting and how you got there.
Well, my background's actually in video production. I've been doing video production for over 20 years and started becoming interested in consuming podcasts probably 6 years ago and started producing podcasts about 5 years ago, just a couple. But in the last 6 months, I've started producing podcasts I've been focusing on that as a market in my business. So I have one client who I've been producing a podcast for about a year, maybe half a year. And then I have two clients who I've trained and I'm just awaiting their first recording so I can edit them.
Now you're coming out of Tampa, right? And you work,
Tampa,
you work for
Florida.
a church.
Yes. My other job is I'm doing all the same things for a church. So I'm in charge of the technology, the video, the audio, the website, all of that same kind of thing at the church.
And you have you say you have like three elements. You have you work for the church, you have your video productions, and now the podcasting business.
Yeah, so the podcasting is part of the video business. I use the same company branding because they really go. A podcast channel has a lot of the same benefits and a lot of the same style as a video on YouTube, except for without the picture. So the way I always say the ideal structure for a podcast is actually the same way you would structure a video, except for maybe the length, like at least the way the introduction goes. I think the introduction to the first 5 seconds they say on YouTube is super critical. And I think the same 5 seconds, maybe you get more like 10 on an audio podcast. But again, the beginning is the most critical because when people just start listening to the show without subscribing, they can't shuttle. It just plays from the beginning. So you need to start right away explaining what the show is about and especially what that episode is about before you get into any theme music at all or anything like that.
Yep. You were on Timelines of Success episode 59 almost a year ago in September. And I started putting a little piece of the recording up front, something to get people hooked into it. A sort of similar idea.
Yeah, I remember when we did that, and I thought that was genius. That was a great way to do it. And especially since you're going to edit it anyway, you don't necessarily have to. I mean, this is the secret between just two podcasters.
Right.
You don't have to record the intro first. That's what I actually tell my clients. I tell my clients if you can't figure out your hook at the beginning, just record the show, and then at the end of the show, when it like a light bulb goes off, it goes, I know how to explain this episode in one sentence. Record the ending, and then I literally tell the client out loud, tell me your notes, like in the recording, because I'm going to edit it anyway. So I just tell them out loud when you record your audio, say, Stuart, this part I want to do as the introduction at the beginning of the episode. And I, wait a beat, and then they start talking. And so then when I edit that all together, it just gets flip-flopped.
Right. By the way, that's part of your business. You do podcast editing as well as video editing.
Yeah, podcast editing and video editing.
So you must be a glutton for punishment.
Well, I'm working on streamlining and coming up with templates. Each client, they get their own template. So they understand that their show is going to flow the same way every time, which of course is good for branding, but it also makes the workflow a lot easier. I have an editor I picked up a couple years ago who does some subcontracting for me. And I'm thinking about right now, as we're recording this, it's July, and I'm thinking about maybe posting another internship help wanted, because there's a local school here in the Tampa area. I think it's called, I can't remember the name of it right now, but they have an audio production course there. So I actually know the teacher or the principal or whatever you'd call him that's in charge of that.
Right.
And so I can talk to him directly and say, hey, if you got anybody that's come out of your audio course that needs some part-time work, then I could do that. And again, I'm still overseeing and doing quality assurance on all these shows, even if I'm not editing them. I spend the most time, again, like I said, the template is the hardest part. Coming up with the flow of the very first episode is the part I really focus on. So I pretty much edit the entire first, maybe second episode myself. Then I send all the audio files to my editor and say, okay, this is how I want you to flow. I want this to be this many seconds, and then I want a crossfade from the intro to this piece of music, and here's the original WAV file, and so on and so forth.
You know, I forgot how much work it is to set up the intro and the flow, the show flow per se. That's always work, and it does take time because this is my fourth podcast, pure podcast I've launched, and I have some joint podcasts which I really like. I had some tech people come to me and we create one jointly, and that's a lot of fun. But I forgot how much work it is, and plus I get little butterflies on a new show.
When I first started doing networking and for my business, I had butterflies all the time, and I couldn't even stand up for do 30 seconds, let alone stand up in front of someone and give a whole speech. And people have been seeking me out now and asking me to do presentations for them.
Well, that's good. It's good.
Kind of crazy.
In Tampa?
Yeah, mostly out here. Mostly not downtown, but some in the the suburbs, so to speak. Although the Word Camp is coming up in the fall, there's a Word Camp Tampa, and I applied to be a speaker at that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, how did you get into today. WordPress? So, are you talking about podcasting or WordPress?
Well, yes. What my topic I suggested, and this is the topic I suggested for WordPress, is how video, audio, and multimedia content can benefit your search engine results.
Well, that's
so
good.
It's both. It's talking about WordPress. There'll be some techniques. I'll talk about how, like, you don't just want to embed a video in your site and not do anything else. Just like on podcasting, you want to have good notes, not just on the blog post on your website, but you want to have really good notes on the YouTube video. Too many people upload a video and they'll call it My Company Name Promo. That's the title. They'll title it that. Well, unless someone's searching for their company by name, they're never going to find them. You want to be found based on the search terms you think that the client. So, for instance, this new podcast production service, I've been doing search engine research this week. And so one of the keyword phrases I'm going to target on my new website is create a podcast. So I'm going to try to rank one of the pages under the keyword phrase, create a podcast. I also have another service I do for the video production. I do client testimonial videos. So I did some research, and the most common phrase that's probably the best to rank for is client testimonial videos. And then another page under client testimonial video examples, that'll be the page that's sort of my portfolio page showing the samples of client testimonials I've done. So search engine optimization has to be throughout your entire process. It's not just like you can pay, there's people that pay $1,500, $2,500 and up a month just for someone to do search engine optimization. And that's not even without creating any content. That's just like kind of maybe gray hat or black hat tricks to get people to rank higher. But really the best way to rank organically is media.
Yeah, and you like to use YouTube, right?
Well, for my clients, I use YouTube. For my business, I use YouTube and Vimeo. The reason I like Vimeo for my business internally is because when you embed a Vimeo video on your website, you can remove all the Vimeo markings. So it looks like a nice, clean embedded video.
So how does that affect your SEO with Vimeo?
Well, same thing on Vimeo. You want to have all those keyword descriptions and stuff on Vimeo. Again, I'm different because I'm doing the videos internally. I also post the same exact videos on YouTube. And then those videos on YouTube link back to the page about. So the other thing, that's the other biggest mistake people make on YouTube, is they'll make every one of the YouTube videos go to their homepage. Well, that means if your video was about basket weaving, but basket weaving is only one of 100 services you offer, and you drive to your homepage, then they're going to have to go to your homepage, and then they're going to have to find the basket weaving page. Whereas if you have a video about basket weaving, you want to have it linked directly to the basket weaving page. Same thing with podcasting. When you have a podcast, I mean, if you listen to podcasts, everyone says the show number or the title, and you go to the page, and so everything that was mentioned on that show in particular is on that page. So same thing with YouTube. If you're doing a YouTube that's some kind of review or you mention a product, you want to have a very clear in the description underneath. And of course, before the interview, you and I started talking about affiliate marketing. And so it's really good. That's a really good way to do some affiliate marketing too, is anytime you mention a product or a book or some other partner you work with, you come up with an affiliate program, either through some affiliate program or like locally, I know several different web developers, and we're working right now on, we just kind of have partnerships right now where we just kind of refer back and forth without any monetary benefit. We just, because it's just network,
right.
But there's theoretically the option to add, every time he sends me a referral, I give him 50 or so on and so forth. But it's sort of like, it seems like it's going to be a wash, because if we're passing referrals back and forth and I give him 50 and he gives me 50, well, it's sort of like it just evens it out.
You mentioned a really critical element too. The podcast opens up so many doors, like meeting this other web developers, people of that nature. And there's a lot of going back and forth, helping each other, working as forming little teams like of subcontractors, each individual company forming like a little organization, like preferred contractors.
Mm-hmm. That's what I do. I try to find preferred contractors who are development, writing, writing, and then not video editing, but actual like written editing. So you can
like copywriting,
take the video or the copywriting, right? Copywriting, copy editing, and then search engine treatments of the copywriting, which kind of goes hand in hand. Graphic design for static graphics. I'm good at web graphics, pretty good, but I'm not good at print design. It's a different, designing for print is different than designing for the web, because the font you choose and the resolution and all of that. So
it's definitely an art. So you sort of answered the question. You do monetize, but go in a little detail, and we'll go to the next section. How you monetize is by a lot of different sources and elements all coming together, it appears.
Yes.
Anything specific you'd like to share how to monetize?
Sorry, I was going to look at that page for my reference.
That's okay. I guess I'll edit that on the podcast.
Sorry.
Stop.
How I monetize is indirect. The podcasts themselves, I'm not interested in putting sponsorships on them per se, except they are my own portfolio of work, so that when someone asks me to produce a podcast, they'll say, well, what podcast have you produced? And I can in turn show them my own examples of podcasts I've produced, and they'll see, hear the quality, etc. I do have some monetization through affiliate links through iTunes and Amazon, but I don't really push them, because one of the shows just naturally I talk about iPad apps. So I figured, well, I might as well just go ahead and sign up for the iTunes affiliate link and use that on the website. And on WordPress, there's actually a plugin that'll automatically do your affiliate link for you, except that most of the apps I'm referring to are free. So it doesn't really benefit me that much, but it's a low barrier to entry, as far as it's passive income.
Right.
My focus is the service of producing podcasts for other people. That's where I want to. That I enjoy.
That's a lot of work, though. I mean, if you're actually doing the production, that's not training, that's production. There's a limit to how much you can do.
There is a limit to how much I can do, and that's why a couple of years ago I brought in another video shooter editor, but she's also learning to do audio editing. And then I can't remember if I said this in the show or in our pre-talk. There's a college here in the area that I'm going to talk about an intern, perhaps another audio editor, specifically for audio only.
Very good. So going on to our next section, it's the bottom line upfront questions, and we're going to talk about your equipment. For example, what type of equipment do you use? I know you've got the dynamic mic.
Yeah, this is the Audio-Technica. It's the 2005, which is pretty much exactly the same as the 2100, except I think it's a different color. The 2100 is silver. And
I set someone up with a 2005, and I actually like the sound of it better than the 2100. I can tell a difference.
Really?
They say it's not, but I can tell a difference.
I thought it was a cosmetic difference. I didn't think it was any different.
Maybe
one's designed more. So I use this. I use the entire Adobe suite for both video and audio editing. All my website work is done in WordPress. I shoot on an older Canon camera. It's the XLH1. but it just has an amazing lens that works well for both like studio work, where you want to really adjust the camera and the color and everything to be more creative. But it's a really nice long lens, because one of the other fields I work in is recording lectures and seminars. So I can be in this giant lecture hall, be all the way in the back, and still be able to zoom in nice and close with the 20x zoom and the optical stabilization. So those are the tools I use.
Hold that thought real fast. I got a question. We're going to follow up on your camera.
Okay.
XLRs, is it limited the length of time that you can shoot a clip on an XLR?
The XLH1 is limited to 62 minutes exactly.
62. Why is that? I've heard some rule it's like 20, 30 minutes on some.
No, it's still a tape-based camera. And one of the things I'm looking at, and I debate this constantly, is I can get an outboard recorder that'll record, say, 3-4 hours at a time.
That's a full-blown video camera, though, right? It's not an XLR.
Well, this is a full ENG camera. I mean, the camera is about that
ENG.
big.
Explain what ENG is.
Yeah, it's about 22 inches. It's a camera designed to go run and gun. It's primarily designed for that. But when it first came out, it predated what the current digital SLRs have become popular for. So it was Canon's first delving into cinematography style shooting, at least in high definition. They've since switched a totally different direction, Canon has, wisely, because now all the Canon cameras take the same lenses. This camera doesn't take a stock Canon lens without an adapter, which they make. But it's 62 minutes, and it's also a lossy format. So that's the big downside to it. So that's, again, why
lossy,
with the camera,
lossy.
It's compressed. So those of you in the podcasting world understand compression and bit rate and stuff like that. So this camera is a little bit higher compression. The camera I'm looking to purchase next is the Blackmagic Design camera, which shoots not only HD, but it shoots 4K video. So it's actually twice the resolution of HD video, but it shoots the video equivalent of RAW. So it shoots Cinema DNG RAW files. So they're giant files. It actually has to record onto an SSD drive. It's not like a little SD card like your digital camera has. It's a full-on, 2.5-inch SSD drive.
So much data. That's a lot.
Well, it's the data, it's the amount, and the bandwidth.
Right.
Like, for instance, my previous Canon camera records at about 25 megabits per second. This Blackmagic, I believe, records at 100 megabits per second or higher.
Okay. And a couple more questions off of what you said. When you're recording the lectures, how do you get good sound?
I do a couple of different things. I always bring my own if I have to. I don't ever want to rely on if there's a PA in the room, I don't want to ever 100% rely on the PA, because you never know if their sound guy is going to mess something up, and then it reflects poorly on me because I'm just picking up what he picks up. The other reason why I do my own sound is because the person doing the sound for the room is just worried about amplifying the voice on stage. They actually don't want to record any of the audio that's natural in the room, because you're in the room and they don't need to hear it. But on a video later, when you watch it, if people laugh or they clap or anything like that, you want to make sure you get that audio as well. So I have a camera. People think of it as stereo left and right. But one of the first things I learned in video production is, no, you don't think of it as left and right. You think of it as channels 1 and channel 2. So you just have 2 sources. So there's 2 ways to go. One way is I do a shotgun mic either on or near the camera on one channel. And then the other channel, I'll do one of 2 things. I'll connect to the soundboard in the room if they have it available, their mixer. Yep. Or the other trick is you actually put, and I learned this when I used to do weddings, you take your wireless lavalier mic and you tape it either to the boom mic on the pulpit, on the lectern, or you put it near one of the speakers in the room. Not so close that it picks up the vibration, but near enough the speaker. And then, of course, you have to adjust the gain so that you're not over
on the mic. That makes sense. Never thought about that. Good idea. And
so I always have a split. Some producers also record with an outboard recorder, and especially the outboard recorders are nice because a lot of them have 4 or more channels. So not only can you record those 2 sources, but you can also record a separate stereo signal. So I've been thinking about getting one, but I've been doing fine without it so far. Again, I'm kind of saving up to get the new camera, and then everything will kind of be focused around that.
Right. Very good. And the last part is, I know you work for the church and you stream your services and I think that's great.
Yeah, we've been live streaming our services 7 years, I think, or longer.
That's a long time. I'm surprised everybody doesn't stream. It's so affordable now.
Well, in my world, one of the reasons why I didn't want to stream is because I wanted it to be of a very high quality.
Yeah, I did.
I also wanted to do it legally. One of the challenges with live streaming is if you're doing a lecture like us or a webinar, we're not playing any music.
Right.
We're not playing any video clips. We're not playing back any CDs. We're just talking. So there's no copyright implications. With the live streaming of the worship services, there's a license churches get to perform music live in a live environment. But that same license does not cover streaming online. It's so goofy.
Is that when they're actually playing the music themselves with their own instruments or
even
singing?
If they're playing it live, you have to have a performance license. My integrity is I want to be above bar and try to get everything covered. I don't want to ask that. Copyright licensing is not something where you want to ask for forgiveness later. You want to get permission up front.
The other thing too is in education, training, things like that, you can stream almost everything now. So let's say you can't make it, you could watch it live at your house. You just have to put the iframe up.
That's the other thing that my church does that surprisingly a lot of the other churches that don't do is not only are we live, but within a matter of hours, it's automatically available again.
Right, it records and it comes back up.
Yeah, it records and then republishes. I'm working on changing the workflow of that because the stream is streamed at kind of a low bit rate. And then the on-demand service is the same bit rate as the original recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm working with an editor that's going to, like every Monday, they'll take the service and they'll adjust the audio and normalize it. And then the other thing, like speaking of podcasting again, one thing I think that would be nice that we don't do obviously live in the room is we don't like ask people to subscribe or any of those kind of things you normally hear on a podcast. But if we pre-recorded that segment and put it either the beginning or the end or both of the video and then published that, if someone comes across the video on YouTube and doesn't even go to our website, there's that very clear call to action.
Yeah, very good. So Stuart, in finishing up this first section here, is there any one technology you really like? You're into so much technology. Is there anything you really anything special?
Really I think this is probably what I said the last time I was on the show, and
that was timelines.
Yeah, on timelines. Is iOS. I have an iPad and an iPhone, and I'm going to Podcast Movement later this month, and I'm probably only going to bring my iPad. I am going to bring an actual video camera, but I have an adapter that lets me download the files off the camera onto my iPad, so I can actually edit video on my iPad. I can do all my email on my iPad. I do my Evernote on my iPad. You can draw and all that. So iOS, in my nerdy child of the 80s mind, it's like the quintessential future tech to me. I mean, it's still not quite where some sci-fi shows depicted it, but in other respects, if you look at sci-fi from say 30 years ago, they would have never even predicted anything like that, let alone thought it would happen.
Yeah, the Apple Watch now and everything. It's amazing.
And the Apple Watch is pretty crazy. I have a Pebble.
Came up before.
I actually got this just about a year ago, and I really like it. It does just fine. The Apple Watch is cool, but the second technology is, again, you and I talked about websites and stuff. WordPress is just an amazing piece of software. I mean, it started as a blogging platform, but now full-blown corporate websites or even networks of sites are done on WordPress. You can do a full email marketing through your WordPress. You can do project management through WordPress. You can do a store through WordPress. So even though I don't do websites as part of my business, I really enjoy delving deep into WordPress development for my own sites. Again, I work with strategic partners when I want to refer a client to do a website, but I really enjoy getting into the nitty-gritty. I go back to website development when I did website in HTML from scratch in Notepad on Windows.
Hey, well said about WordPress. And it's open source. You can go. You can't stop. There's infinite amount of material that you can learn about
Just
WordPress.
just open source software in general is amazing. I mean, there's so many amazing open source programs.
It's very good. That's well said, and that's excellent. So, in tying it all together, in closing, we're going to talk about your success principles, and we're going to ask for 7. So go ahead, tell us what your 7 success principles are that you live by, that you run your business by. Some people tie in their life principles with their business. Some people just business. I think you've tied in some of your life principles with your business.
Yes, thank you. The first thing is family. Everything I do is for my family. I prioritize family time. On weekdays, weeknights, and weekends. It's one of the many reasons why I stopped doing wedding videos. Saturday is protected time. Because I work at a church, Sunday is already kind of a foregone conclusion that I'm going to have to work on Sunday anyway. So Saturday is protected. And then in my business, I try to not go to any evening networking events more than 1 or 2 times a week. The second thing is,
it's still a lot.
It is it's usually only one. It's not even every evening. I try to do them during the day as much as possible. But when I have to do evening ones, I try to not do more than 1 or 2. And that leads into the next second thing, which is I'm a whole person. I don't have a spiritual life and a business life and a personal life. I'm one person. This is especially true on social media. I have a personal profile, and pretty much every post on Facebook is set to public, with very, very few exceptions. So I don't hide who I am. I'm an open networker on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So anyone that wants to be in a LinkedIn connection, I accept almost every LinkedIn connection. I accept almost every Facebook connection, unless they look, again, if that,
good point. You don't want to be careful. A secret podcaster.
No, especially in podcasting. No. And I also share all my different, I have my own personal Twitter, and then each of my shows has a Twitter, but I'm always constantly sharing between those accounts. And then that leads into integrity again.
So what are the 7? Integrity is your first.
Family is the first one.
Family, integrity.
Whole person is the second one.
Whole person.
And let me list them all. 3rd is integrity. 4th is quality. 5th is teamwork. 6 is collaboration, which is different than teamwork. And 7 is networking. So those last 3 kind of sound like they're together, but they're really different. So integrity is, I need to be the same. I need to be the person I want people to see me as. I don't want to put on a facade. I need to really be true to myself, true to the beliefs I have. And then that goes into quality. Quality is what I produce needs to be of quality. It needs to represent me. It needs to represent the client to the best of my ability, to the best of their ability. And then teamwork is bringing in people on a project that are part of my team and that we work together. I bring in writers, other editors, other videographers, and work on a project together. Collaboration is referring out. So for the websites, I don't do my own websites, but a lot of clients come to me for a video, but they need website work. So I collaborate with a web person, and they give me access to the website, and so they develop the website, but then I have an admin access to do what I need to do with the video. And then networking is relational networking. I'm very involved in the Riverview Chamber of Commerce, the greater Riverview Chamber of Commerce, as we like to say, and also in the Tampa Bay Business Owners, tbbo.org, which is a very big business development networking group here in the Tampa Bay area. So those are the 2 biggest ones I'm involved in, but I'm also involved in a lot of other chambers of commerce, less so.
Well, again, well said, and that's a good mix. Very good. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Just tell us how the listener can find you. Easiest way.
Well, the easiest way to get hold of me is at mackeyproductions.com. That's mackeyproductions.com. That's my business website. But you can also find my personal blog at stuartcmackey.com, and I'm pretty much findable as Stuart C. Mackey everywhere.
And for the listener out there, we'd appreciate it if you'd rate this show as well as the Mackey combined shows, all of the shows. The more ratings, the better for everybody. It helps us. You get into it. And if you need help in the Tampa area, look you up and find you.
Or if you need help with post-production, video or audio, I'd love to talk to you.
Not even Tampa. You can go anywhere.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Bill.
Aloha. So that's the end of the podcast. Now we'll finish up with YouTube. So say goodbye to everybody. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.